As we mentioned in the last lecture, um, exchange rates, there's not a perfect system for exchange rate determination. They all have their positives and their negatives. But at the end of the last lecture, we were looking at the positive and negatives of our current exchange rate system, the floating exchange rate. Under a clean float, which means that the government is not required to intervene in the market where, supply and demand does it all, we do know that the value of the dollar could get very strong. We could know the value of the dollar could get very weak. And a weak dollar and a strong dollar have their advantages and their disadvantages. So there are times, even under a floating exchange rate system, in which the government chooses to intervene. And if you recall, we call that a dirty float. Now, when the government chooses to intervene, it can intervene in one of two ways. It could have direct intervention, which means, you go right into the foreign exchange market, you buy and sell dollars, buy and sell reserve currencies, buy or sell gold, depending on what you choose to do. So you can directly intervene in the foreign exchange market. Now, the problem with this direct intervention is that by changing the supply and demand for dollars, you can impact the domestic economy. So you could try what we call sterilized intervention, in which at the same time you're intervening in the foreign exchange market, you also intervene, you adjust the domestic money supply. And by doing this, you can counterbalance the changes in the foreign exchange market with the domestic money supply. So in a way, it will help insulate the domestic economy from the changes you made in the exchange market. You could use a non-sterilized intervention in which the Fed just directly intervenes in the foreign exchange market, but does not adjust the domestic money supply. Right? That would be done if you feel that the Fed would feel that there's no real the negative impact on the domestic economy is very slight or maybe even non-existent. So you have your options. The Fed could also choose to intervene by using indirect intervention. An indirect intervention is when you adjust something that will affect the value of the dollar, but not intervening in the foreign exchange market. For example, if you change interest rates, if you increase interest rates, then you may be encouraging more people to invest their money in the United States. So that would change the value of the dollar. That would change the supply and demand for dollars internationally. You could use other trade barriers that would do the same thing. So that is all. If you're not going into the market directly, that's your indirect information. All right. So what we next need to turn our attention to for next week is arbitrage and interest rates. So I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.